Welcome to Inside the London, the Knowledge Exchange, a series where we explore universities, students, and employers, how they connect classroom theory with real-world practice. I'm your host, Maciek. People call me Magic, if you like. I'm happy to call me Magic. And we're joined by Ebru Ergun. Ebru is an experienced educator specializing in business English and professional communication for international students. She has taught across NGOs, schools, and universities in multiple countries, helping learners build the language and professional skills they need to succeed in global workplace. Welcome, Ebru. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Maciek, for the wonderful introduction.
We have 6 challenges for you. They aren't too difficult. We try to keep it within those 6, but it's simple. We are trying to bridge theory and practice. Our first challenge is, like for all our guests, is you teach business English and professional communication to international students. How do you help learners connect classroom language skills with the real communication challenges they'll face in global workplace?
I mean, what I do is I focus on transferability. So every language task or links to a real life situation, real work situation. So this could be, for example, presentation. So if they have to give a presentation in front of an international audience, their classmates, pitching, using diplomatic language versus direct language. They have to discuss case studies. We also do role plays. So whatever they learn, all the theories and vocabulary, they apply to real life situations. So I use a lot of authentic material as well as course.
So this is just a quick follow-up. Do you have any examples of your own personal students that may have, took the classroom learning and applied it directly into workplace or internships or anything like that?
So, for example, they have to, let's say, pitch a product that they've invented. It's very much like a Dragon's Den style type of pitching. So I showed them a couple of clips from Dragon's Den.
Mm-hmm.
So they get the idea of the language that is used in terms of pitching, but also negotiation. And then I put them in groups and they have to create a product or a service and that they have to pitch that to the rest of the class.
Do you find it, just a quick one, just out of interest, do you find that, this is sort of thing that, studying the crowded graduate markets, a lot of your students come from all across the world, don't they? So like you taught students from, all these places, and in your view, what makes an English language or business focused international program truly memorable or transformative for the student's career?
I mean, what we try to do is try to sort of get them to really feel the shift from learning just, English to acting as a professional. So I have a corporate background. So before I was a teacher, I was in banking. So I use that experience to show them, what they need to do at work. So we have a combination of graduates and professionals in the same class. And the graduates, obviously, they have no idea of the real world. So my professional students, teach them how life is, what reality looks like, because I don't sugarcoat anything. So I tell them what real work-life situations look like. We're not always going to get along together as a team. You have to face the facts that things will go wrong. So what do you do in those circumstances? So if, for example, they have to give a group presentation and one of their teammates doesn't turn up to the presentation, what do? Do they panic or do they remain calm? So those are the kind of skills that I try to teach them. And I very much try to get them to use their critical thinking skills as well. Especially when you have an international students. They all have, come from different cultures. They have different ways of thinking, and the classroom becomes rich because of that. So they do learn a lot from each other.
This is interesting because, of course, you've dealt with people coming from across the world, and many of them have never experienced the real corporate world like you have. So it's that exposure to that particular stress which make them think, well, I failed. Shall I just give up or just pick myself up and carry on? So it's sort of important now because we've got, career outcomes and employability these days. It's so much difficult because the employees market is very tough and very tight. Many students come to English training hoping it will unlock better jobs, but beyond the language accuracy, what professional skills do you think students must develop to succeed in the modern international workplace?
If you say building relationships, the AI tools, they can learn that, but real in-person, relationships are really, really important. I think public speaking is another great skill to have. I mentioned critical thinking skills and also teamwork, especially when you have diverse, when students have diverse cultural backgrounds, they are going to, have some disagreements. But how do you diplomatically disagree with each other? How do you help each other? So it's really the human skills that I get them to practice, as well as their, English fluency and accuracy. Because everything else, like yes, they do have to have digital fluency, but it's really the human, should we say, human skills that are extremely important. Networking is another one.
I was just wondering about that because and many skills like that to be overlooked. But do you think any of those skills, particularly employers, notice straight away? The ones you've just noticed, maybe there's something else.
I have my students with their CV writing
Hmm.
as well. And what I usually find is that knowing my students, how talented and hardworking they are and how they can stand out, that doesn't always transfer on to their CV. So I spend a good amount of time helping them how to write their CV rather than writing, for example, in terms of work experience, a list of responsibilities. I get them to think about how they had an impact on the companies they worked. And for graduates, I get them to think about the projects they were involved in at university as well as high school. That's what's going to get them to stand out. I also tell them that visibility on social media like LinkedIn is really important. And, you as Insider London, helps us organize company visits. And our students have the opportunity to find out about the background of the companies, but also they get to talk to the founders of those companies or the representatives of those companies. And that really opens their world of many possibilities abroad, especially abroad. Yeah.
This is a perfect segue because the next question is about the partnerships because we partnered with you with Staff House, but there's you taught across schools, universities in multiple countries, and what qualities do you look for strong education partners? Apart from us, like and genuinely support students' growth.
This is really practicality. I mean, you teach in class and they practice the theories in class. I also, we also look for partners that will help students with the practical side of things, especially like soft skills. So that's what we really look at. And we look at partners that are willing to give advice and mentor our students. That's what we really look for. Yeah.
I suppose you're looking for something that's sustainable rather than just transactional, right? Because it should benefit both ends at the same time. Because the students will learn from the partner, the employer, as such, and company, and
Mhm.
then vice versa. But one of the common threads we're doing is like these words tend to sometimes not collide enough. So you might have the university education on one end, and then the employers on one end, and then they tend to be stuck in their own universes. So it's important, I suppose, to sort of break those barriers the best way possible. Now, things have changed the last few years. We had a pandemic and things moved on, and education was affected by COVID. as such. Have you noticed changes in what international students expect, whether in teaching, support, communication, all the skills they feel they need?
A lot of students expect to get a job straight away once they finish university, and they realize that it's not that easy anymore because there's so many graduates out there. But I always tell them, while they are job hunting, is really to network online, to physical events, new people, and also start some sort of small projects and post them online, as well as if they have maybe 1 or 2 hours per week to volunteer in order to improve their skills or gain new skills. Because while they're job hunting, and they start getting those job interviews, recruiters are going to ask, what have you been doing in the last couple of months while you've been looking for a job? And they can say, well, I've been really productive. I've been doing this and this and this. And it will give them, a competitive edge.
Have you noticed that perhaps students' expectations have become rather being set to just online thing, and the soft skills you mentioned seems to be forgotten? Have you noticed a shift in which they just expect things just to be done online? And you're trying to reiterate to them saying, "Well, listen, there's other, like you just mentioned, they have to be out there connecting in physical world." And have you noticed that there's like people just when they study during COVID and post-pandemic, they tend to be set on that. Like, well, we could just do it online.
Really, I think the students that I have is, some of them sacrificed a lot to come to London and to be physically in a classroom. You can tell some of them have that sort of interpersonal skills, and others slightly lack, so they tend to be a little bit quieter
Yes.
than the rest of the class. But what I love about my students is they're really, they want to push themselves out of their comfort zone. And they realize that not everything is done online, that they really need to get out there and speak to people in person rather than just be online all the time.
So you've
And it's human need as well to be connected.
Well, I'm happy to hear that because we've heard from many employers saying that's one thing they're lacking is that thing you just mentioned is the need for the interpersonal interaction. Even going to the office some amount of time to be with people, especially freshly graduated, there's been a bigger shift. Hence the question. But overall, you have just highlighted the benefits of study abroad. As someone who designed professional certificates courses, how do you measure whether a student is truly ready for global career?
It's just the experiences that they share with each other. So at the end of every course, I sit with my students and ask them what they learned, not just at school here, but also learned about themselves. Because coming to London and to meet people from other cultures, has really opened up their eyes to the possibilities of, maybe working in London,
Yes.
or in other countries as well. So they start dreaming bigger.
Yes.
And even though I have most of my students for, 4 weeks, they still make huge progress, and you can see their mindset shifting because they become much more confident, and they know that when they're out there looking for a job, they will be able to use the skills that they learned in class here at Stafford House. And that's just wonderful to see.
Now, there are a couple more questions. This is something that we've been encouraging to our employers to ask the next guest, and just so it happens that those questions landed on you. Those are from Michael Korn, CEO from Bullet Garage. And his
Mhm.
question was, what are you doing to give your most talented students access to tools and opportunities they need beyond what you currently provide to create an innovative and sort of classroom?
Oh, well. Well, I mean, I did tell you about sort of, sharing
Yes,
my
you did.
my
Yeah.
experience, but also I also mentioned company visits because I think the company visits that you at Insider London organize for us, that it gets them to really understand what employees look for, because just sort of overhearing my students talking to, for example, Sam Hall
Yes.
at these reality rooms, they ask, how can I get into this business? What do I need? What type of skills do I need to work in this industry? So that's really, really important. And we also have, I organize guest speakers from different backgrounds, like interior design, um, entrepreneurs in education. So it's not just what they learn in the classroom, but is the sort of questions that they ask, real industry people to understand how they could get ahead in the industry that they want to work for, and then work on those skills or improve on those skills.
It's a great one. And yeah, there's a lot of skills that evolve, and many of them will be useful for whatever you're going to do in the rest of your career. The last question from employers, from Oscar Sadler, the head of client strategy at Wiser. He posed this question: what industry do you think will be dead in 10 years? And how are you preparing students for an increasingly global and fluid workforce?
So that's a tough question. The thing is, I worked in banking and things were changing quite fast. And I'm talking about, 20 years ago, where the cashiers were disappearing and they were putting these, all singing, all dancing
Yes.
ATM machines. I mean, the thing is, banking is one industry that not completely disappear. There are certain jobs that will disappear in banking. But I always say to my students, and I do this myself, even at the age of 51, is that you've got to be aware of what's happening in your industry, and don't just sit on your laurels, but actually keep improving your skills or gaining new skills, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Companies constantly restructure, constantly, trying to save money, which could mean, layoffs. Don't think that, you've got a job for life. So you've got to, keep sort of working on your personal growth. And if you know that your job is going to disappear, then start looking at what else can you do? How can you transfer your existing skills and improve on those?
Great. I mean, we're looking for all answers. I'm sure there's no one answer to all these questions. It's just it's good
Yeah.
to have the conversation between the industries, education, people in. So in that way, we'd like you to ask the question for our next guest. And of course, the next guest will be coming from the industry, the employer. So do you have a question for our next guest, Ebru?
My question would be, it is for an employer, you said. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, what what skills do you think graduates need to have but are not taught at university? That would be my question.
No, this is something that comes across all the time. And in a way, perhaps I want a quick follow up. I'm going to go be cheeky here. It's like, do you have a question for our next guest? Let's say they're a student. Ask them a question.
Okay. Um, the question that I will ask them is if they know what is your ikigai?
Mm.
Yeah. So what is your, reason for being? So think about, what your passions are, what you are good at, what people need, and what people will pay you for. So if you can answer those questions, then I think you'll be okay.
We'll make sure we bring some students asking those questions. We have a poll of questions, tough, and the tougher the better, because it's about challenging each other as we are. And before we finish, and finally, Ebru, this is from us, Insider London. What has your experience been like working with Insider London?
It's been absolutely fantastic, actually. Working both with, you, Maciek, and Giame. It's amazing, especially the company visits. that you offer, because we have students who have many different interests, many different backgrounds, and you've been absolutely fantastic with also the tools for our project management students. And I also want to thank you for your professionalism and how quickly you respond to any emails I send, on the board. Jemay, the moment I send an email, she quickly replies. And I never ever stress out. She takes all that stress away from me. So yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. And I hope we'll continue with our, partnership with Inside London.
We're happy to be a partner, and we're happy to partner with anyone. And that's the point of this conversation. Thank you, Ebru, for joining us. This was insightful, and we need more educators. So any educators out there, we are really like to speak to you. We've spoken to employers. We want more educators to speak. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights again. Ebru, this has been another episode of the Knowledge Exchange from the Inside London podcast, where we highlight the bridge between education and industry. You can catch up on insiderlondon.com/podcast. And we've got LinkedIn, of course, and YouTube. So Ebru, thanks again, and we'll see you next
Thank
time
you.
for next build. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maciek. Thank you.